a butterfly sculpture installed in downtown Winter Garden, a new library for Horizon West, controversy in McKinnon Groves, and a big anniversary for our historic newspaper. The date is September 16th, 2021. We're going to go through these stories and more. Welcome to West Orange on the Go. My name is Austin Arthur, and this is where we do local news and comment. And when I say local news, I mean hyper-local. West Orange. This is your news. We begin in 10 seconds.
You're listening to West Orange on the Go. Brought to you by the West Orange Times and Observer. Hosted by Austin Arthur. West Orange on the Go.
Her name is Flora, and her copper wings will dance in the sunlight in a city named Winter Garden on a thoroughfare called Plant Street. The Bloom and Grow Garden Society's Butterfly Project, an art piece created by sculptor and artist Don Reynolds, was installed Tuesday at a new downtown city park being built between the splash pad and the new Exchange building. Now, this is in Winter Garden. The 10-foot copper Monarch butterfly is a gift to the city of Winter Garden, an appreciation for the 20 years of partnering and assisting with the Garden Club's annual Spring Fever and the Garden Festivals. Gretchen Boyd, who founded Bloom and Grow in 1997, came up with the idea of a Monarch project in 2017. Now, the Bloom and Grow Society raised the funds along with some great local partners, including the Garden Theater, Crooked Can, Alex Ramos with Plantation Jewelers. Also instrumental in helping the club reach its fundraising goal was member Paris McNamara and her family, who donated half the cost of the sculpture in memory of their parents, who, quote, devoted their whole lives and resources to their beloved Winter Garden, end quote. Now, a dedication of the butterfly sculpture is planned for October. The full story with a great picture of the great Monarch is located in this week's paper. In other news, Orange County and the city of Orlando may have the solution to a major problem for Horizon West residents who have been lobbying for their own library branch. Orange County Library System states that Lake Nona has also been lobbying for a branch, and this has created a competing demand for funding, putting both requests on hold. However, a proposed partnership between the Orange County Library System and Orange County and the city of Orlando may hold the solution, where the libraries would lease the buildings from property that the city and the county respectively own. Now, all three parties still have not yet approved any final decisions, but it seems for the sake of libraries, the city of Orlando and Orange County are getting along. The town of Windermere will have a public meeting on September 20th to hold the final budget vote for the 2021-2022 budget. Among other items, this will include setting the town's millage rate, tentatively set for just over 3.7 mils. The meeting will be held at 6 p.m. on that day, and it is to take place at the Windermere Town Hall. More details in the paper. Now, before we continue on with our hyper-local news, let me tell you briefly about our new sponsor. Now, you may have heard of the biggest gymnastics center in the state of Florida, Gymnastics USA. Now, that's where the old Kmart used to be, right on 50. Now, my brother and I actually founded this gymnastics center in 2014 right here in Winter Garden. And I am proud that the decision was made to place Gymnastics USA as a sponsor of this program. So if you have youngsters, kids, grandchildren, teens, as long as they're walking, we have programs for you at Gymnastics USA. So I encourage you to check it out. This is the home of the positive approach. Now, over the weekend, there were some great ceremonies in our community in remembrance of the 20th year anniversary, 20th year marking that we endured of 9/11. In the paper, there is a review of some of those events and ceremonies. Also, the West Orange Times and Observer released a very special print edition of the paper in remembrance of that terrible day. I encourage you, if you have that, if you were able to get a copy, to hold on to that. It's definitely something to keep. Now, we also released a very special edition of this program, West Orange on the Go, with a dramatic presentation and retelling of events of 9/11 and offering a special message for West Orange at the end. So I would love if you check that out. It's, of course, always relevant, even as we move past the 20th marking of that horrible day. Now, some education news that is hyperlocal, because this sort of thing affects us. For a long time, these sorts of decisions were made at the hyperlocal level. So inherently, this is a hyperlocal item. The governor revealed a plan to eliminate the Florida Standards Assessment. Now, that's the annual testing that the students do in these public schools here in West Orange. Governor DeSantis called the FSA outdated and said it took days to administer, which takes time away from learning. Furthermore, because it is administered at the end of the school year, it doesn't leave any time to react to the results. The Florida Education Association applauded the change, with the FEA president making a remark, quote, "This is a great opportunity to address how we can use progress monitoring systems to best serve students," end quote. More in the West Orange Times. And now in Ocoee news, their city commission heard the first readings of items pertaining to pet stores and a temporary moratorium on self-storage facilities. Now, the pet-related ordinance would restrict pet stores from selling dogs, cats, and rabbits. The city tabled the discussion and will revisit both these items at their September 21st meeting. Now, with regard to the selling of pet ordinances, now this comes on the heels of, I think it was back in June, Orange County did the very same thing. A restriction of selling dogs, cats, and rabbits. Now that, I think, takes effect in a year from now. So I see that the city is probably going off of that. And I think that there is some mention in the article of them wanting to look closer at the Orange County ordinance. Now let's jump into some of our hyper-local sports news. Let's go for our high five. Number 1, Olympia quarterback C.J. Brooks was named to the High School All-America Classic on September 7th. The game, which features the best high school seniors in the country, will take place during Bowl Week, January 12th through 15th. Number 2, the Ocoee Knights are turning heads with their 3-0 start to the season after their 34-13 dismantling of Olympia. The Knights have scored 79 points and only giving up 26. Number 3, Foundation Academy's Brian Thomas Jr. announced his commitment to play football at the University of South Carolina. With his announcement, 3 of Foundation's 4 defense linemen now have committed to Power 5 schools. Number 4, Wintergarten Little League began its season last Saturday with T-ball and pitch baseball. Orange County's suspension on county-run youth sports does not apply to Little Leagues because they are private organizations and were able to proceed with their seasons. Number 5, the high school football season moves forward into its 4th week of action on Friday, September 17th. Foundation Academy returns after an unexpected week off to take on Lakeland Christian in its first home game of the season. And Olympia takes on Osceola at home. Let's talk about the battle for McKinnon Groves. McKinnon Groves is planning 660 homes on 357 acres of the 15,000-acre Wellness Way master plan. Now, as expected, there are opponents, and they see the project as an example of overdevelopment that may negatively impact property values and the way of life in the area for current residents. Various environmental and property concerns have made McKinnon Groves a target for backlash, also aimed at former Orange County Commissioner Scott Boyd, whose family owns 159 acres in McKinnon Groves. Boyd is involved with development and has discussed the plan with several residents. Quote, "Not only do I live here, but we own land on the other side of the county. I want to make sure that it's done correctly because whatever happens with that land will impact us." Now, Boyd states that in addition to a 5-mile trail, McKinnon Groves will also add vehicular access on an improved realignment of Hartman Marsh Road, a half-age restricted, half-single-family residential plan, and 48 acres of non-residential development. Now, voices on both sides of the land use debate seem to share the concern of additional traffic on roads that cannot accommodate increased volume. One road in particular is of focus, Hartwood Marsh, which connects to Marsh Road leading into Winter Garden, an already hot-button topic for Winter Garden residents in that area. On that issue, City Manager Mike Bohlhofer states there is good news. Quote, "There are road projects scheduled in the near future that will alleviate a significant portion of these problems. The future extension of County Road 455, linking to the future Wellness Way Parkway, will go a long way to easing traffic congestion and safety issues on Marsh Road. The Central Florida Expressway, State Road 516 Orange Lake Connector, will also help." End quote. Orange County Commissioner Nicole Wilson spoke against the project at a recent Lake County Commission meeting. While Boyd contends that criticism is a product of misinformation on social media, he says, quote, "You can either sell and let the fate of the land lie with the individuals who buy it, or guide it. And that's what we did here. We guided the development pattern with the community in mind." End quote. Now, before we jump into this final story, let me tell you about our other sponsor who's been a sponsor since the beginning, the inception of this program, and that is Foundation Academy. Now, if you've been listening to this program weekly, you may know my daughter recently got accepted into Foundation Academy. We couldn't be happier. Now, Foundation Academy has been doing this since 1958. They're constantly on the top list of private schools in Orlando. They serve grades pre-K through grade 12, and they have 3 beautiful campuses, but it's one great school, and it's all Christ-centered. I encourage you to check this great school out, Foundation Academy, where character matters. And now to the final story. The Observer Media Group is celebrating the anniversary of the West Orange Times and Observer this week. 116 years. The first edition of Winter Garden's first newspaper, the Winter Garden Ricochet, was published September 13th, 1905. The first editor was A.B. Newton. Now, for some of you, that might sound familiar. Now, it's not just a cool Winter Garden brand. A.B. Newton was also our first mayor here in Winter Garden. According to an article in the Winter Garden Journal dated August 24th, 1933, the Ricochet was started when Newton met a printer with the last name March on the train coming from Sanford. The printer was looking for work, so the duo put out a newspaper, and it contained 4 pages of 3 columns each and was produced on a hand press with all the type set by hand. Now, over the past 116 years, it has, of course, changed ownership multiple times and gone through some different name changes, with the most recent being the West Orange Times, which was in 1987, all the way through 2014. And then, of course, now its current name, the West Orange Times and Observer. Different names, same paper of record, our paper of record, turning 116 years old this month. All started with 2 men on a train. Now, we have reason to be proud of our local West Orange paper. Not every community has such a thing. With that being said, I want to thank you for taking the time to walk through this week's Hyperlocal news with me. Together, we are more informed, but I want to hear your feedback. I want your questions, your ideas. Message me by visiting westorangeonthego.com. That's westorangeonthego.com. This has been Austin Arthur with the West Orange Times and Observer. And until next week, have a happy and blessed weekend.
West Orange on the Go is brought to you by the West Orange Times and Observer. Hosted by Austin Arthur. West Orange on the Go.